Hello, wrestling fans. Blake Smith from Walking the Ropes, and welcome to another episode of Walking the Ropes Wrestling Review for AEW Dynamite from Atlantic City, New Jersey. To open the show, we had Wardlow making his way to the ring. He has cutouts of MJF beating CM Punk, and then hands Justin Roberts some cards to announce the Pinnacle. It's interesting that they all get entrance music and an entrance in general, whereas Wardlow didn't get any music. He just came out. Spears gets announced and then hands Roberts a booklet almost with a huge list of things to name off for MJF to make his entrance. MJF finally comes out and he gets the Cody entrance with the set coming up, and he's being carried out on a chair and he looks super smug about it. He celebrates with the Pinnacle, but Wardlow isn't included in that. He says he's the best wrestler on the planet and keeps talking about beating Punk twice in Chicago last week, which is exactly what I thought he would do. Says he told Punk he sucks when he went to pin him. He then goes on to thank Spears for helping MJF warm up, even though Wardlow handed him the ring. Spears has a gift for MJF. It's a new shirt. It said, "I beat the best in the world," I think, or something like that. And says he now has his sights set on the AEW World Championship. CM Punk comes out on the ramp and says MJF's win is as real as his spray tan, and says he learned today that and today he has some friends, and here comes Darby Allin and Sting. He comes out, or he gets handed a bat, and they are coming to they say they are coming to beat him twice, and he says he's wanting a rematch. FTR says they also want a rematch, but Punk says, okay, if MJF doesn't want to wrestle tonight, tonight it'll be FTR versus Punk and anyone of his choosing, but MJF says it can't be Sting or Darby. So, he has to choose somebody else. I don't know. He also says Wardlow has a match next. We then get Sting and Darby talking with Andrade, and Sting and Darby keep telling him Darby doesn't work for Sting and he is not a kid. Andrade says he will work for him because Darby wants the TNT Championship, and if that's the case, he'll have to beat him because Andrade says he's the next TNT Champion. We then get a singles match, The Blade versus Wardlow. Wardlow makes his way to the ring to make short work of The Blade, who jumps him, but that doesn't last long, as Wardlow gains the advantage to start to control The Blade. The Blade gets a couple of shots in while Wardlow favors his knee, but he catches The Blade in the Powerbomb Symphony and gets the win. Wardlow defeats The Blade. From a Malteser scale, I gave it a 2.75 out of 5. It was a alright match. I mean, we pretty much always expect these out of Wardlow now. For the WTR scale, I gave it a 3 out of 5 because we are still building to that eventual Wardlow turn, and I can feel it. It's getting closer and closer every week. Penta says if Black wants to live in the darkness, then old school Penta will have to come back. I wonder if we're going to get the Pentagon Dark from Lucha Underground. He's likely to go as Penta Dark because I think Lucha Underground owns all those names still. But if that's the case, I would actually love that. The Inner Circle make their way to the ring, but they're minus Santana and Ortiz. Jericho says he hasn't seen Santana and Ortiz all this week, but here they come down. Now we have all the Inner Circle in the ring. Jericho wants to know why they've done what they've done. Santana says Jericho's the only cares about himself because they always have to come to Jericho's rescue whenever they seem they're about to come up for a title shot. He's really not wrong. Says they are done playing second fiddle and says the only thing keeping him in the Inner Circle has been Ortiz. Jericho compares him to Eddie and says since Jericho brought them into AEW, they've done more and made more money than they ever have before. He says they had a shot and lost, and he could kick them out if he wants to. Says that maybe he got the wrong two members of LAX, and then he gets jumped by Santana, who kind of grabs him by the throat, But Sammy stops them, and Jericho gets pissed, and that pisses off Sammy, and he cuts off Jericho and says that he has plans to become the greatest champion, and it's not going to be held by all this bickering. And says that they can't get their shit together. He's going to leave the group again. He drops his inner circle cut on the ground and walks out. Ortiz talks and says they should settle this in the ring. Next week, Jericho and Hager versus Santana and Ortiz. Jericho tells them they better be there because attendance is mandatory so they can smack some sense into them. Roppongi Vice talk about their upcoming match, and the Bucks come in to say hi, and this is obviously a distraction so Adam Cole can jump them. The Bucks then grab Trent, and they're appearing to set up for what looked like the BTE trigger, but the Switchblade, Jay White, appears and takes out Trent. He then leaves without touching the Bucks or Cole, and this must be the signing Tony was talking about. We then get the Face of the Revolution qualifier match, Isaiah Cassidy versus the new signing. Cassidy's making his way out to the ring, and it has to be the Switchblade following him out here next, right? Wrong. It's Limitless Keith Lee. He makes his way to the ring, and he looks set to make a statement. He showered in the "Oh, bask in his glory" chants, and he looks redeemed already. He tosses Cassidy literally across the ring, then flips and flies his way around the ring himself, and then Lee sends Cassidy flying and makes Matt walk off in a pretty erratic way. It's a huge reference to AEW signing Jeff Hardy in the future here. Mark Quinn tries to help Cassidy, but only lasts for a moment as Lee gets back in at 7 and then swats a kick out of the air. Lee pops up and catches Cassidy and slams him down for the win. Keith Lee defeats Isaiah Cassidy to advance to the Face of the Revolution ladder match. For my Multizer scale, I gave it a 3.5 out of 5. I mean, the match was very quick, but it was exactly what it needed to be. For my WTR scale, it's a 4 out of 5. I love that build for it. It worked so well. After the match, Private Party jumps Keith Lee and makes an example out of he quickly makes an example out of them, slamming them on the outside. Rosa and Martinez talk about their upcoming no DQ match, and Martinez says this is her match. Rosa doesn't care and she just wants a fight. We get a tag team match, FTR versus CM Punk and a partner of his choosing. Punk seems confident as he's walking down the ramp, and it's not apparent who his partner is. He comes out by himself, and he does pick a good one as Jon Moxley's music hits and he makes his way to the ring. It's a very cool tag team, Punk and Moxley. I wonder what Danielson is thinking of all this. Instead of responding to Danielson tonight, he decided to team up with Punk. Punk and Mox are working well together until FTR pulls out the cheating tactics. And this really doesn't bother Moxley as he takes on both men, hitting DDTs and Germans in the ring, following up with a dive to the outside after Punk was caught in the air. They brawl to the outside, and FTR focuses on Moxley, taking him through the timekeeper's table. But Moxley fights back and gets into the ring, where he immediately is attacked. FTR hit a really nice double leg drop, but after they took out Punk on the ring, but Moxley fights back and makes a tag once Punk is back up. This has been a pretty awesome match. I didn't expect Moxley and Punk to team as well as they have, and they even hit a Doomsday device. Even with FTR cheating, Punk is able to fight back, and this has been great back and forth action as FTR hits the big rig, only for the pin to be broken up. Tully then gets in the ring. He eats a GTS, and Punk and Moxley hit a GTS and Paradigm Shift for the win. No, sorry. They locked in their submissions for the win. I don't know why I wrote down that. They had their submissions in for the win. CM Punk and Jon Moxley defeats FTR. For my Malteser scale, I gave it a 3.75 out of 5. Very good match. And for the WTR scale, I gave it a 4.25 out of 5. I really enjoyed the build for this tag match that was just really quickly done. It worked really well. We get a TBS Championship match. Jade Cargill defending against AQA. She's making her AEW debut, and she spoke before the match saying she was trained by Booker T, and she's already beaten some of the top talent in the world and looks to make a statement in AEW. Well, try as she might, AQA seems to be over her head as she can't really get anything going. As we know, this is just par for the course with Jade. She eventually hits Jaded for the win. Jade Cargill defeats AQA. For my Malteser scale, I gave it a 3 out of 5. It was a pretty okay match. AQA got some offense in, but it really didn't last very long. For the WTR scale, I gave it a 2.75 out of 5. I'm kind of getting tired of these quick title matches from Jade. I mean, she's only had 3, and it's just kind of annoying. She's the champion now. She should have pretty solid contenders. Adam Cole and the Bucks talk about the Switchblade, and Matt just says it would have been nice to have been given a heads up. Cole says he's sorry, but he wanted to make a statement, and he's not done there. We get a singles match, Serena Deeb versus Katie Arquette. Serena has a 5-minute clock, and this is like her challenge that she's doing now. She quickly takes control and glances at the clock, and not a minute has passed by, and she locks in the Serenity Lock for the win. Serena Deeb defeats Katie Arquette. For my Malteser scale, I gave it a 2 out of 5, and for the WTR scale, I gave it a 2.25 out of 5. I assume this was just kind of this is the match, what she's doing, and now we're going to have some longer ones in the future, I hope. The Gun Club talks about their title match coming up, and they say they deserve it, and they will become the new champs. We then get to the AEW World Championship Texas Death Match. Adam Page defending against Lance Archer. They introduce Archer, and they quickly run to the back as we're shown them brawling backstage. It appears Archer was going to jump Page and send him through the glass in his entrance tunnel, but Page ends up sending him through it instead, and they brawl some more, and as they brawl on the outside, and out into the fans, Dan Lambert takes out the top rope, forcing Page to not be able to use the buckshot lariat. Archer has taken control, despite being bloodied, and looks to send Page through the tables on the outside. But Page fights out himself, and both men are now bloodied. Roberts then tries to get involved, but Archer stops him and gives Page the advantage as they argue. Page then sets up in the ring, but Archer stops him and sends him flying into a trash can on the in the ring there. And then grabs a bunch of chairs and finally one with barbed wire. Archer then turns his attention to the steps and turns it on the side and hits the blackout onto the steps, and I thought for sure it was going to be over there. He then goes for a powerbomb in the ring, but Page grabbed some of the barbed wire, wrapped it around his arm, and started just beating Archer. The ref tries to move some of the wire, and Page uses him for the buckshot lariat, literally used him as like a springboard, and then hits the buckshot lariat through the tables on the outside. He got up at about 8, and that was the win. Adam Page defeats Lance Archer to retain the AEW World Championship. For my Malteser scale, I gave it a 4.75 out of 5. Great match. I absolutely loved every second of it. For the WTR scale, I gave it a 5 out of 5. The build for this was great, and the absolute just brutalness of this match was awesome. After the match, Adam Cole makes his way out and grabs the title and then puts it on Page's shoulder. I think he just made it clear he's going for the title next. Overall, I gave it a 5 out of 5. It was a very good show. For the segment of the night, I gave it to the Inner Circle as well as Jay White. I'm excited to see where that's going. For the match of the night, it is definitely the Texas Death Match. They did amazing. The performers of the night, I gave it to Keith Lee. He already looks so happy. And Adam Page and Lance Archer. They did amazing in that match. It was great. That is all for this episode of Walking the Ropes Wrestling Review. Thank you all for dropping in. If you enjoyed, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to get notifications whenever we upload a video. And I'll see you in the next one.